Bozeman, Montana police, as well as the coroner, both told the families of Steve Kilwein that their dad had lost his life to a simple household accident. They were wrong. Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. And today we're going to talk about the unsolved Steve Kilwein crimes. These crimes occurred in Bozeman, Montana, and I've received quite a few emails about this case. The family is searching for answers. Now, this is a very interesting case with a lot of moving parts. We just talked about a crime that occurred in Bozeman, Montana less than a month ago when Dustin Jersum's life was taken with an axe at a campground. Now, in Dustin Jersum's case, they have a suspect in custody, but this case that we're about to talk about is still unsolved. On June 13th of 2021, over 3 years ago, and also another violent crime that occurred on the 13th of the month, 79-year-old Steve Kilwein was brutally attacked and his life was taken inside his home in Bozeman, Montana. He was attacked with an axe or a claw hammer type of weapon, and it was eventually determined that Steve Kilwein's means of death was blunt force trauma as well as chopping type wounds to the back of his head. Now, I say eventually because Bozeman police originally believed that Steve Kilwein had simply been electrocuted. This man was 79 years old, so this attacker had absolutely no compassion whatsoever, and it's very possible that they're still out there. Steve Kilwein lived alone. His wife of 55 years had passed away from heart failure 2 years earlier. They had 5 children, and all of his children were living in other states. They were living in Colorado and Washington and California. Now, Steve was a contractor, and he owned a construction business for over 50 years. He was in the process of remodeling his home, and it was described by one of his sons as looking like a construction site. Steve was very close with his children. They kept in constant contact, and Steve would call them and they would call him throughout the day. He was 79 years old, so his children who lived in different states would call and check up on him. On June 13th, he wasn't answering his phone, and that wasn't like Steve. So his children became worried. They thought that it was strange that they hadn't talked to him for over 12 hours. So at 9 p.m., one of Steve's sons calls Bozeman Police Department and asks them to do a welfare check on his dad. They're worried because they think that maybe he's fallen or maybe there's been an accident since he is working with power tools and he's remodeling his house. So they're worried that maybe there was some kind of accident and their dad is unable to make a call out for help. Now, when Bozeman law enforcement arrives at Steve Kilwein's house, they find him deceased in front of his refrigerator inside his kitchen. Here's where it starts to get a little weird. Bozeman law enforcement, as well as the coroner, both believe that Steve lost his life because he was electrocuted by an exposed wire. An exposed wire from a household electrical outlet. Steve Kilwein, who has over 50 years of construction experience, accidentally touches an exposed wire from a residential electrical outlet, and they believe that that's what took his life. Now, on June 15th, Bozeman law enforcement contacts one of Steve's sons and asks him if they have permission to re-enter the house. Steve's son thinks that this is very strange. because the coroner has already told the family that their dad lost his life to an accidental electrocution. So they thought that was odd as well, because Steve was an accomplished contractor for over 50 years. So his kids thought it was very odd that he would have that type of accident, that he could lose his life by touching an exposed wire from a residential electrical outlet. But Steve's son gives Bozeman law enforcement permission to re-enter the house. And 2 days later, on June 15th, they hold a press conference. And in that press conference, they announce that Steve Kilwein did not lose his life to an accidental electrocution, but that he was brutally attacked. Bozeman police also said that they believed that Steve Kilwein knew his attacker and that there was no danger to anyone else in the community. Where have we heard that before? I feel like we hear that a lot in a lot of the crimes that we talk about. We don't have anybody in custody. Someone just brutally attacks somebody with a knife, but don't worry, nobody else is in danger. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so they believed that Steve Kilwein knew his attacker, and they told the family that they had a strong suspect. So the family is thinking that there's going to be a quick arrest, and there was not. So Steve was struck repeatedly in the head with a sharp object. There was a struggle, and there would have been a lot of body fluid. But Bozeman police believed that he was electrocuted. And that's even what they told his family. Not only Bozeman police, but the coroner also told Steve's family that he was accidentally electrocuted. I mean, it seems like they would have seen all this body fluid. And what about the extensive wounds to his head? Now, an autopsy report showed that there was a struggle. And Steve was 79 years old, but he was also a big man. He was 6'2", and he was still active. So he did struggle with his attacker. Nothing was missing from the crime scene. Law enforcement even found Steve's wallet that still had $2,300 cash inside because he had just sold a used Suburban. So it didn't appear to be a robbery attempt or someone who was trying to take Steve's belongings, because they left everything there. Now, according to Steve's family, he was a very well-liked individual. He was very social. Every morning, he would meet his friends for breakfast, and he was known to frequent home improvement stores and chat with the customers and talk with them about the projects that they were doing. So he was a well-liked individual. His family said that he did have some recent break-ins in the past, that some small items had been taken from his house and that he was able to recover some of these items. He was known to help people who were down on their luck. And his daughter said that he actually had an old trailer in his backyard where he would sometimes allow people to stay. So he would take people in, he would feed them, he would help people. So he did have people around him, people who may have been down on their luck and might want to take something from Steve Kilwein. This crime happened over 3 years ago. Law enforcement still has no suspects. They've made no arrests. Nothing. Of course, they've buried all the details because they don't want to compromise the investigation that's been going on for over 3 years with no answers. The family is getting frustrated. They've been frustrated. They don't feel like Bozeman police are putting in the effort to find the person who took their dad's lives. These poor people have been on a roller coaster ride. You know, they're being told that their dad was in an accident and that he was electrocuted. Then they're being told 2 days later that he was brutally attacked and that his life was taken. They're also being told that they have a strong suspect and they're expecting an arrest. But that never happens, and that suspect never pans out. So this family is looking for answers. What happened to 79-year-old Steve Kilwein on the morning of June 13th, 2021 in Bozeman, Montana? Was he attacked by someone he knew? Maybe somebody that he helped in the past, or maybe someone he was helping at the time. Why would law enforcement believe that he was accidentally electrocuted? And why would it take them 2 days to realize that he was brutally attacked with a heavy, sharp object? He had extensive wounds to the back of his head. So why wouldn't law enforcement see that right away? Why wouldn't the coroner see that right away? There's a lot of questions in this case. There's a lot that doesn't add up and a lot that just doesn't make sense. So we're going to look into some of these questions and do a deep dive into this case and see what we come up with. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. And if you liked my video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. I hope that you all had a great day. We'll see you next time.